This is the video called Build the First Linear Programming Tableau. Over here on the left we have the beginning of the routine that builds it, and over here in the first box on the right is a continuation of that routine until below that. This first box is the required data for this particular problem, and over here we see it referred to as required. Below that is the on-hand quantities, and we see that referred to over here, on hand. And the last one down here is the prices of the items. That's in a list called price. Alright, now we'll start going through the routine. First thing it does is it fills the 30 values at rows item with 99. Then it fills numerically, that's what the N stands for, 400 values at matrix with 0. It's going to zero out all the values of the matrix. Then it sets J to 0, sets L to the item count, then it adds to it the part count, and then it takes that value and it puts it in the quantity offset. The quantity is put in the very last column of the tableau, in this case the matrix. It's at offset first for all the items. They each have a column. Then all the parts have a column, and then the last column is going to be for the quantities. So the quantity offset is the sum of those two. Then it sets the margin offset to the part count. Alright, that's how many rows there are. And then it multiplies it by 30. 30 is the number of columns in each row. And the margin offset is the point to the very next row after the last part. So it has to skip 30 for each part. So that's the offset actually of the last row that will be in the tableau. Then it sets H to the quantity offset, J to 0, K to 0, L to the item count. We'll see what these are used for, and Q to 0. Now we're going to go around a loop for I of 1. And down here we have next I to the part count. Well, there's going to be a row in the tableau for every part. So it's going to go around here for each part. The first thing it says it's going to do is it's going to move to matrix plus K the required values at offset J. Well, at the beginning both of them, J and K, are 0. After it moves them over there by the number of item count, that's how many it's going to move. It's moved from required to the matrix at offset K. It's going to add J 20 because the required, the rows are 20 long. But in this matrix where the tableau will be made, there are max columns apart, which is the same thing up here, 30. There are 30 apart. So each time it goes around for each part, it's going to move in the required for that part, and then it's going to change the offset or required by 20, and the offset for the matrix by K, which is 30. So it's taking something that had 20 columns and making a new thing that has 30 columns. Then the next thing it does is it sets matrix plus L to 1. Now that offset of L started at the value of the item count. So it's going to be where the slack variables have their identity matrix when it starts. So it says at that offset I want to place a 1. And the next time I go around, I want to move that over one column, so it adds 1 to L. And it adds the max column, that value of 30, to L. So the next time you can see it's making a identity matrix. It puts a 1 in the row there, and the next row, one column over, it puts a 1. The next thing it does is puts the on-hand quantity at matrix plus H. Well, up here we say H is at the quantity offset. So it's putting it in right after it put in the columns for the items, the column for the parts. Now it's at the quantity offset where it puts the quantity. So here, matrix plus H is where it's going to put the first quantity at offset Q. Remember, down here are the quantities, and they're only one apart. So Q up here started at 0, and every time it comes past here, it increases it by 1. Because remember, it's doing this for every row. So it has to put the on-hand quantity at the last position in that row. Then it goes around for another part. So it goes around here for every one of the parts. So it's building the matrix. That's, we're going to see later on here, gets moved into the first tableau position. Once it has built the matrix there, it says set I to the margin offset. Alright, we figured out that the margin offset is the beginning of the very last row, which is right below the last parts row. That's where the margins will be placed. Well, for every item, it says for the item count, take the prices and put them into that last row. And here are the prices. After that, it wants to know what item is in each row. Well, when it starts, all the slack values are in the row. The slack variables are in the row. So it says down here, start at the item count with, well, put item count into J. It's going to increase J by 1 every time. But what it's going to say is the row has the slack variable in it. And the first row has the first slack variable, and then so forth to the last for the part count. Actually, there's a mistake here because it says it goes from 0 to the part count, which means it's going to go 1 more than the part count. But that doesn't matter. Alright, and the last thing it does, it just makes a list of numbers so that when it shows the tableau, it's going to number each one of the columns and it's going to number each one of the rows. So it's just making this list called numbers. And the first one, although it's at offset 0 here, we see it, I starts out at 0, number plus I, it actually makes it value 1 plus I. So although the offset of the first column would start at 0, it actually numbers it as 1. It adds 1 to it. Alright, this is the building of the first tableau for the linear programming simplex method. Alright, this is the end.